It's 10:47 p.m. The city outside your window hums like a distant dream. Rain taps softly against the glass, steady and calming, like nature's own lullaby. You're wrapped in your usual routine, sitting on the couch, scrolling through your phone with one hand while holding a mug of lukewarm tea in the other. The apartment is quiet, too quiet, but it's familiar. Safe. That's what you tell yourself anyway. You've been feeling this way for weeks now, not sad, not exactly, but empty in a way that's hard to describe. Like you're going through life on autopilot, just showing up without really being there. Work, home, repeat. Conversations with friends feel surface level, like you're all pretending everything's fine even when it's not. And dating, forget it. Too many awkward first meetings, too many fake smiles, too many people who never quite felt right asterisk. You've stopped swiping altogether. Not out of anger or bitterness, just exhaustion. It's easier to be alone than to keep getting hurt trying to connect. The clock ticks past 11. You glance at your screen one last time before setting your phone down. Maybe tonight will be the night you finally get some real sleep. But just as you lean back into the couch, a knock echoes through the apartment. Sharp. Unexpected. You freeze. It's late. Too late for anyone to be knocking unless it's important. Or drunk. Or both. You hesitate, debating whether to answer. Most nights you wouldn't. You've always been cautious about who you let in, not just physically, but emotionally too. But something about the sound of that knock makes your chest tighten. It doesn't sound demanding, doesn't sound angry, just uncertain, almost nervous. Against better judgment, you grab the flashlight from the side table and walk toward the door. You peek through the peephole. Standing outside is a man, soaked from head to toe. His clothes cling to his body, darkened by the rain. He looks cold, tired, maybe even a little embarrassed. He shifts on his feet as he waits, glancing down the hallway like he's hoping someone else might come instead. You don't know why, but you open the door. Just a crack, enough to see him clearly. Up close, he's younger than you expected, maybe around your age, early 30s. His hair is wet and sticking to his forehead. There are dark circles under his eyes, but his smile is soft. Friendly. I'm so sorry to bother you, he says quickly, voice low and polite. I live a few doors down. Well, I'm staying there, anyway. My Airbnb key stopped working, and I can't reach the host. I was wondering if I could borrow your phone to call them. You look at him for a moment longer than necessary. Something about him feels off-kilter, like he's not telling the whole story. But then again, who are you to judge? You've had nights where you barely held it together too. And besides, he doesn't seem dangerous. If anything, he seems like someone who's lost and just needs a little help finding his way. You nod slowly and step aside. Come in. You're soaked. He hesitates, surprised by your offer. Then he steps inside, careful not to track water onto the floor. You hand him the phone and motion toward the living room. Wait here. I'll get you a towel. As you walk away, you hear him exhale deeply, almost like he didn't realize how tense he was until now. When you return, he's standing near the couch, hands shoved into his pockets. You toss him the towel and point to the kitchen. You want something warm to drink. Coffee. Tea. He blinks, clearly not expecting the hospitality. Tea would be great. Thanks. You move around the kitchen, boiling water, grabbing 2 mugs. You don't usually do this for strangers. Hell, you barely do this for people you've known for years. But there's something about him, something quiet and broken, yet kind, that makes you want to offer more than just a towel and a phone. When you bring the tea over, he's already seated on the couch. He takes the mug with both hands, blowing on it gently before taking a sip. This is really good, he says. Thank you. You sit across from him, nursing your own tea. Silence stretches between you, but it's not uncomfortable. It's peaceful. Like neither of you is in a rush to go anywhere. Eventually, he speaks again. I guess I should explain why I really knocked on your door. You raise an eyebrow. Oh, he chuckles nervously. Okay, so my key really did stop working. That part was true. But I've been walking around for like an hour trying to find someone who'd actually let me use their phone. Everyone either ignored me or said no. I was starting to think I'd have to sleep in the hallway. You laugh softly. Yeah, people can be weird about letting strangers in. He nods, looking down at his tea. I get it. It's a lot to ask. But thank you. Seriously. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't opened the door. You shrug. I figured you weren't a murderer. He laughs, the sound light and genuine. That's fair. Another silence falls, but this time, it feels different. Like something has shifted. Like you're not just two strangers passing time anymore. He looks up at you. So, what's your name? You pause, realizing you haven't told him yet. Eli. Alex, he says, offering his hand. You shake it. His grip is firm, but gentle. His skin is still cool from the rain. And in that moment, something stirs inside you, something you hadn't felt in a long time. A spark. A connection. Small, fragile, but real. Neither of you knows it yet. But this is the beginning of something. Something neither of you saw coming. Something beautiful. You wake up the next morning with his name still lingering in your thoughts, Alex. It's strange how someone you barely knew 24 hours ago can suddenly feel like a shadow that follows you even when they're gone. You keep replaying the night over in your head as you sip your coffee, staring out the window at the gray sky. The way he laughed. The way he looked around your apartment like he was trying to memorize every detail. The softness in his voice when he thanked you again before leaving. You tell yourself it's just curiosity. A passing moment of connection that will fade by tomorrow. But it doesn't. Not even close. By midday, your phone buzzes. Unknown number. You hesitate for a second before answering. Hey, his voice comes through the speaker, warm and familiar like an old song. It's Alex. A smile tugs at your lips without permission. Hey, everything okay? He chuckles lightly. Yeah, just wanted to say thank you again. Seriously. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't opened the door. You lean back on your couch, letting his words settle into your chest. I told you, you weren't a murderer. He laughs again, but then there's a pause, not awkward, just thoughtful. So, I was wondering if maybe we could hang out again. Like, actually hang out. Not just emergency tea in the middle of the night. You blink, surprised by how quickly your heart jumps. Like, coffee or something. Exactly like that, he says, relief in his tone. Unless that's too forward. You shake your head even though he can't see you. No. Coffee sounds good. There's another pause, longer this time, and when he speaks again, his voice is softer. Okay. Cool. I'm glad. The conversation ends after a few more casual exchanges, but the effect lingers long after you put your phone down. You find yourself checking your messages more than usual throughout the day, hoping for a text that never comes. You wonder if he's thinking about it too, if he's feeling that same flutter in his chest, that same quiet anticipation. When the next day finally arrives, you meet him outside the small cafe near your apartment. He's already there, leaning against the wall with a nervous energy that makes you smile. He looks up when he sees you and waves, his face lighting up in a way that makes your stomach twist. You came, he says, like he wasn't entirely sure you would. I said I would, you reply, walking toward him. He hands you a paper cup. Thought you might want something to go with the coffee. You take it, raising an eyebrow. What is it? A croissant, he says proudly. I got two. In case you were hungry. You laugh, taking a bite. It's buttery, flaky, perfect. Good choice. Inside, you find a table by the window. The place is cozy, filled with the smell of fresh coffee and pastries. People come and go, but for now, it feels like it's just the two of you in the world. At first, the conversation is light. Small talk about the weather, the city, the absurd price of rent. But soon, the layers start peeling back. He tells you about moving here from a small town where everyone knew everyone, and no one ever really changed. Where being different meant being invisible. You listen carefully, noticing how his voice changes when he talks about the past, quieter, heavier. You admit that you've been lonely lately. That dating apps have become exhausting. That sometimes, it feels like you're just going through life without really living it. And when you say it out loud, it hits harder than you expected. He nods like he understands. Sometimes I feel like I've spent so much time trying to be enough for other people that I forgot what it felt like to just be me. You look at him then, really look at him. There's something raw in his expression, honesty wrapped in vulnerability. And for the first time in a long time, you don't feel like you have to pretend. You end up talking for hours. The cafe empties out, replaced by new customers who sit and sip and chat like nothing has changed. But everything has. You leave together, walking side by side through the streets, not saying much, just enjoying the silence between words. At your doorstep, he stops. Looks at you like he wants to say something but isn't sure how. You wait. And then he does. "I think I liked spending time with you," he says, voice low. "More than I thought I would." You nod slowly, your pulse picking up. "Same." He smiles, soft, genuine. "Good." Then he turns to walk away, but not before glancing back once. Just once. Enough to make your breath catch. As you step inside your apartment, you realize something: you didn't want the night to end either. And somewhere deep inside, you already know, this isn't just a random encounter anymore. It's the beginning of something real. The next morning, your phone buzzes before you've even opened your eyes. You reach for it blindly, half awake, and see his name on the screen: Alex. A message sits there, simple but somehow enough to make your heart skip a beat. "Good morning. Hope you're not one of those people who hates croissants." You laugh out loud, pulling yourself up against the headboard. The night before plays in your mind like a movie you can't stop watching. The way he looked at you when you talked about your fears, the way he listened like every word actually mattered. It had been a long time since someone made you feel that seen. You reply quickly, "I'm not. But if you keep bringing me pastries, I might start developing feelings." Seconds later, another message pops up. Too late. Your breath catches. Not because of what he said, but how easily he said it. Like it wasn't some big declaration, just a quiet truth he was finally ready to admit. And maybe, so were you. Over the next few weeks, something shifts between you. What started as a chance meeting turns into regular dates, coffee, dinner, long walks through the city where conversation flows effortlessly. You learn things about him slowly, like peeling back layers of an onion. He tells you about growing up in a place where being different meant hiding. About the boy he used to be, shy, unsure, afraid of taking up too much space. And the man he's becoming, stronger, more confident, learning to stand tall in his own skin. You find yourself opening up too. More than you ever have with anyone. You talk about relationships that left scars. About the times you gave pieces of yourself away hoping someone would hold them carefully, only to watch them crumble. About how hard it's been to trust again after being hurt so many times. He listens. Really listens. Not just waiting for his turn to speak, but truly hearing you. And in return, you do the same for him. One night, after walking through the park under flickering streetlights, he stops you just before you reach your door. His hands are in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched from the cold, but his eyes are steady on yours. "I don't know," he says softly. "Maybe this is too soon to say, but I think I'm starting to feel something real." You blink, surprised by how fast your chest tightens. You weren't expecting that. But as you look at him standing there, raindrops clinging to his lashes, nervous energy humming beneath his skin, you realize you've been feeling it too. You nod slowly. "Yeah, me too." He exhales like he's been holding his breath, and then he smiles. Not just any smile, but one that reaches his eyes. One that makes your stomach flutter in a way you haven't felt in years. And just like that, everything changes. The next few weeks blur together in a haze of laughter, shared playlists, late-night texts that stretch into the early hours of the morning. You start spending almost every night together, sometimes at your place, sometimes at his. You fall into routines without even realizing it. Making breakfast together. Watching movies curled up on the couch. Talking until your voices go hoarse from saying too much and laughing too hard. There are moments where it still feels surreal. Like you're living someone else's life. Because love, real love, hasn't felt like this in a long time. It doesn't come with games or pretense. It comes with honesty. With vulnerability. With the kind of connection that makes you want to stay up all night just to hear the sound of their voice. But with every step forward, there's also fear. That nagging thought in the back of your mind: what happens when this ends? You try not to dwell on it. Try to live in the moment. Because for once, the moment is good. It's really good. And maybe, just maybe, it could last. You remember the night like it was burned into your memory. The way the air felt, the way his laughter filled your apartment like it had always belonged there. You had invited him over for dinner, something simple but meaningful. Pasta. Garlic bread. A bottle of red wine. Candles flickering on the coffee table even though neither of you would admit how much they added to the mood. He arrived wearing a soft blue shirt that brought out the color in his eyes and carrying a small bouquet of wildflowers, like he hadn't just been over 2 nights ago, like this wasn't just another casual evening. You took the flowers with a smile, teasing him gently as you placed them in a vase on the counter. "You're trying too hard," you said. He shrugged, leaning against the kitchen counter as you stirred the sauce. "I don't think I can try hard enough." There was something in his voice, not desperation, not pressure, just sincerity. The kind that makes your chest ache because you know it's real. Dinner was easy, comfortable. You talked about everything and nothing, the movies you both loved, the songs you used to blast in high school, the weird dreams you'd had the night before. You laughed more than you had in weeks, maybe months. But beneath the surface, there was something else building, a quiet tension, not uncomfortable, just present. Like the air between you had thickened, charged with something unspoken. Afterward, you moved to the couch, wine glasses in hand. He sat close enough that your knees touched. Close enough that when he reached over to brush a stray curl from your forehead, his fingers lingered longer than necessary. That was when things changed. He looked at you then, really looked at you, and you saw something shift behind his eyes. Not nervousness, not hesitation, just certainty. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, voice low, almost reverent. You didn't answer right away. Just nodded once, barely a movement, but it was enough. And when he leaned in, when his lips finally met yours, everything else faded away. It was gentle, slow, like he was afraid you might break if he moved too fast. But there was something deeper beneath it, something raw and honest and undeniable. You kissed him back like you had been waiting for this moment longer than you realized. Like every conversation, every laugh, every shared silence had led to this one breathless second. When you finally pulled away, neither of you spoke for a moment. His thumb brushed along your jawline, and he whispered, "I think I've been waiting for this." You felt the same, so much so that it scared you. Because this wasn't just a kiss. This wasn't just a moment. This was a turning point. The next few weeks passed in a blur of late-night conversations, tangled sheets, and stolen glances across crowded rooms. You started spending almost every night together. Sometimes at your place, sometimes at his. Slowly, your lives began to blend, your clothes in his closet, his toothbrush beside yours, your playlists mixed together on his phone. People noticed. Friends commented on how much lighter you seemed, how often you smiled now. How you looked at each other like no one else existed in the room. And maybe that was true. Because being with him felt different. It wasn't just fun or exciting, it was grounding. Like you had spent years drifting and only now found solid ground beneath your feet. But with every step forward, there was still that lingering fear in the back of your mind. That whisper that crept in during quiet moments, what happens when this ends? Because love like this doesn't always last. You knew that better than anyone. You had been here before. You had let someone in, held onto them tightly, believed in forever, only to watch it slip through your fingers. And yet, somehow, this time felt different. Because Alex wasn't just someone who walked into your life by accident. He was someone who stayed. Someone who listened. Someone who made you believe that maybe, just maybe, love could be lasting. Still, the fear remained. Buried deep, but always there. And soon, it would rise to the surface. You remember the night it started to fall apart like it was some kind of cruel joke, a beautiful evening that somehow turned into something you couldn't control. You had gone out for dinner, just the two of you, at that little Italian place he loved. The one with the dim lighting and soft jazz playing in the background. You laughed over wine, shared stories from your childhood, talked about what it would be like if you ever lived together. It was one of those nights where everything felt perfect, like nothing could go wrong. But then, without warning, he canceled plans the next night. And the night after that. At first, you told yourself it was nothing. Everyone gets busy. Life happens. But as the days passed and his messages became shorter, more distant, something inside you began to tighten. You tried not to panic. Tried not to overthink it. But the silence between you grew heavier with every unread message. When he finally called, his voice didn't sound like his own. There was a weight behind his words, something unspoken pressing down on both of you. I need to talk to you, he said, and even though he didn't sound angry, there was something in his tone that made your stomach drop. You met at the park near your apartment, the same one where you had walked hand in hand only weeks ago, where the world had felt wide open and full of possibility. Now, the air between you felt different, thick with something neither of you wanted to name. He sat beside you on the bench, hands folded tightly in his lap. He didn't look at you right away. When he finally did, his eyes were tired, not angry, not cold, just worn. I don't know how to say this, he started, voice barely above a whisper. But I'm scared. You blinked, confused. Scared of what? He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Of this. Of us. Of how fast things are moving. You frowned. We're happy, aren't we? He nodded, but there was hesitation in it. Yeah, we are. That's the thing. I want this. I want you. But every time I let myself get close to someone, it ends badly. And I don't know if I can do that again. Something inside you twisted. Not because he was ending things, not yet, but because you understood him too well. Because you had been there too. Standing on the edge of something real, terrified of falling. What happened? You asked softly. He looked away for a moment, jaw tightening. Then he spoke, and when he did, it felt like he was pulling something buried deep inside him to the surface. There was someone before, he admitted. A long time ago. Before I moved here. Before I figured out who I really was. You stayed quiet, giving him space to speak without pressure. We were together for almost 3 years, he continued. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Or at least, I thought it was. He was the first person I ever truly loved. And I gave him everything. My heart. My trust. My whole damn self. His voice cracked slightly, and he swallowed hard before going on. But he didn't stay. He left. Just walked away one day. Didn't even fight for us. And I spent so long wondering what I did wrong. If I wasn't enough. If I pushed too hard or held on too tight. He finally looked at you then, eyes searching yours like he needed to see if you understood. And now, he whispered, now I'm starting to feel the same way with you. Like I'm losing myself in you. Like I'm letting you become my whole world. And I don't know if I can handle it if something goes wrong. Your chest ached at his words. Because you knew exactly what he meant. You had been there too, standing in front of someone you loved, begging them to stay, only to watch them walk away. You reached for his hand, holding it tightly. Alex, you said gently, I get it. I really do. I've been hurt before too. I've loved people who didn't love me back the way I needed them to. And I know what it feels like to be afraid of getting too close. He squeezed your fingers, silent tears threatening to spill over. But this isn't that, you continued. What we have, it's different. We're not running from anything. We're building something. And yeah, it's scary. But it's worth it. He looked at you for a long time, like he was trying to decide whether to believe you. Then he shook his head slowly. I don't know if I can do this. And just like that, the ground beneath you shifted. You didn't beg. You didn't plead. You just nodded, swallowing the lump in your throat. I understand, you said quietly. If you need space, I'll give it to you. He stood up, wiping his eyes quickly. Thank you, he whispered. For understanding. And then he walked away. You sat there for a long time after he was gone, staring at the empty space beside you. Wondering if this was the end. Wondering if you'd ever see him again. Because sometimes, love doesn't end with a fight or a dramatic goodbye. Sometimes, it ends with silence. And sometimes, the hardest part isn't losing them. It's realizing you might never stop loving them. You didn't hear from him for days. Then weeks. It felt like the world had shifted beneath your feet and you were still trying to find solid ground again. You told yourself it was okay. That he needed time. That maybe this was just how things ended, not with a bang, but with silence. You tried to move on. You really did. You went back to your old routines, work, home, repeat. You cooked meals for one again. Watched movies alone. Texted friends when you remembered to. But something inside you felt different now. Like a part of you had been left behind in that park bench conversation, and no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't get it back. There were nights where you caught yourself staring at your phone, hoping for a message that never came. Nights where you replayed every moment you spent with him, wondering if there was something you missed. Something you could have said. Some way to fix what broke between you. But he was gone. And you started to believe he wasn't coming back. Until one night, out of nowhere, your phone rang. You almost didn't answer. Almost convinced yourself it was someone else. But something made you reach for it anyway. And when you saw his name flash across the screen, your heart stopped beating for a second. You took a breath, then another, and then you answered. Hey, his voice came through the speaker, quiet and unsure. I hope I'm not calling too late. Your throat tightened. No, it's fine. There was a pause, long enough that you thought he might hang up. But then he spoke again, softer this time. I've been thinking about you, he said. A lot. You closed your eyes, letting the words settle into your chest. It hurt more than you expected. I miss you, he whispered. That was all it took. The walls you had built around yourself cracked wide open. I miss you too, you admitted, voice barely above a breath. Another silence stretched between you, not empty this time, but full. Full of everything you hadn't said. Full of everything you both wanted but were too afraid to ask for. Then he exhaled, like he had been holding his breath for weeks. Can we try again? You didn't hesitate. Not even for a second. Yes, you said. I want that. And just like that, something inside you shifted. Like the world had tilted back into place again. The next few weeks were slow. Careful. Neither of you rushed into anything. You met for coffee. For walks. For quiet evenings where you sat side by side without needing to fill the silence. You talked. Really talked. About fears. About past mistakes. About the parts of yourselves you had kept hidden for too long. You learned how to trust again. Together. One weekend, you decided to take a trip outside the city. Just for a change of scenery. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere beautiful. You rented a cabin near a lake, surrounded by trees that shimmered under the golden light of autumn. The air smelled like pine and earth. The sky stretched endlessly above you. You hiked through winding trails, laughing at the way he tripped over a tree root and landed flat on his back. You teased him mercilessly. He retaliated by tossing a handful of leaves in your direction. You chased each other like kids, falling into the grass with breathless laughter. Later that night, sitting beside a crackling fire, he looked at you and said, I don't think I've ever felt this way before. You raised an eyebrow. What way? He smiled, soft, genuine. Like I'm not running from anything anymore. You leaned closer, resting your head against his shoulder. Me neither. He wrapped his arm around you, pulling you in tighter. For a while, neither of you spoke. You just watched the flames dance, listened to the distant call of crickets, felt the warmth of each other beside you. Then, as the stars began to appear in the dark sky above, he turned to you again. His eyes found yours, steady and sure. I used to think love was something you survived, he said quietly. Not something that lifted you. You swallowed the lump in your throat. I feel the same. And in that moment, you knew, whatever came next, you would face it together. Because sometimes, healing doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes, it happens slowly. Through small moments. Through shared silences. Through second chances. And sometimes, it starts with a single question. Can we try again? And the most important part. You said yes. Back home, life settled into something new, not perfect, not without its moments of doubt and friction, but real. The kind of real that felt like it could last. You woke up beside him most mornings now. Not every day, but enough to know this wasn't just a phase or a fling. It was becoming your life. His toothbrush sat next to yours in the cup on the counter. His clothes filled half your closet. His books lined the shelves you once thought were full. And sometimes, when you walked into the kitchen and saw him standing there with coffee already brewing, barefoot and still half asleep, you had to pause for a second just to remind yourself that this was your life now. This was yours. But love isn't always soft. It's not always candlelit dinners and stolen kisses under starry skies. Sometimes, it's messy, complicated, filled with moments where you question whether you're doing it right. Whether you're right. There were fights. Not loud ones, not the kind that left bruises or broken things, but the kind that hurt in quieter ways. The kind that made you wonder if maybe, just maybe, you weren't meant to be together after all. One night, after a particularly hard week, work stress, miscommunication, tired nerves, you sat on the couch in silence. He was on one end, scrolling through his phone. You were on the other, staring at the ceiling like it held answers. You didn't mean to start the conversation. But the words came anyway. Do you ever wonder if we're just making this work because we want to? You asked, voice low. He looked up slowly, brow furrowed. What do you mean? I mean, you hesitated, choosing your words carefully. I mean, we both have our issues. We've both been hurt before. And I don't know, sometimes I wonder if we're staying together because we actually fit, or because we're scared of being alone again. Silence stretched between you. Thick, heavy. He set his phone down and turned toward you fully. That thought has crossed my mind too, he admitted. More than once. You swallowed hard. That wasn't what you wanted to hear, but it was honest. And honesty was what you had promised each other. He exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I used to think love was supposed to feel effortless. Like once you found the right person, everything else would just fall into place. You nodded. Same. But it doesn't. Not really. No, he agreed. It doesn't. But maybe that's okay. You looked at him then, really looked at him. At the way his eyes searched yours, searching for reassurance, for understanding. At the way his fingers twitched slightly in his lap, like he was trying to steady himself. And then he said the thing that changed everything. I don't need it to be perfect, he whispered. I just need to know we're both trying. You reached for his hand without thinking. We are, you said. I promise we are. And somehow, that was enough. Because love isn't about never fighting. It's about choosing to stay, even when things get hard. Even when you're tired. Even when you're scared. It's about learning how to fight fair. How to apologize first. How to listen when you'd rather talk. How to hold on when letting go feels easier. And over time, those lessons became part of your rhythm. Part of who you were together. You learned how to read each other's silences. How to tell when someone needed space, and when they needed to be held tighter. How to rebuild trust when it wavered. How to love without losing yourselves in the process. Friends met him, really met him, and they liked him, not just because you did, but because he was good to you. Because he made you laugh in ways they hadn't seen in years. Because he showed up, even when showing up was hard. Family met him too. Your sister loved him instantly, teasing you for waiting so long to bring someone around. Your mom kept saying how happy she was to see you smiling again. And your dad, quiet as always, gave him a firm handshake and a nod that meant more than words ever could. He became part of your world. And you, part of his. But still, there were moments where the past crept in. Where old wounds flared unexpectedly. One night, after a long day and a conversation that ended in frustration, you sat on the edge of the bed while he stood by the window, arms crossed, jaw tight. I just don't want to lose this, he said finally, voice barely above a whisper. I don't want to mess it up. You looked at him, heart aching. You won't. He shook his head. How do you know that? Because you didn't. Not for sure. Love doesn't come with guarantees. No one does. But you knew this, you knew what it felt like to be chosen. To be seen. To be loved not despite your flaws, but with them. So you stood up, walked over to him, placed your hands on either side of his face. You already gave me a chance, you said softly. And I gave you one too. And look where we are. His eyes searched yours, searching for proof that this was real. That they were real. Then he leaned forward and kissed you. Slowly. Deeply. Like he was trying to memorize the taste of you. And when he pulled away, he whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." You smiled, resting your forehead against his. Thank you for not giving up on us. Because that's what love is. Not grand gestures or perfect moments. Not fairy tales or cinematic endings. It's showing up. Again and again. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And somehow, through all the ups and downs, through all the uncertainty and healing and growth, you had built something beautiful. Something lasting. And it all started with a knock on the door. Time passed. Slowly at first, then all at once. You stopped keeping track of how many mornings you woke up beside him, because it no longer felt like something to count, it just was asterisk. Like breathing. Like the sun rising. Like coffee in the morning and music playing softly in the background while you moved through your day together. The seasons changed. Winter turned to spring, and then summer, and then fall again. You celebrated birthdays, his, yours, a few friends along the way. You decorated the apartment for holidays you used to spend alone. You built traditions out of nothing more than laughter and shared silences and late-night talks that stretched into the early hours of the morning. You weren't perfect. None of it was. There were still days when tempers flared and words were said too sharply. Days when exhaustion made you forget how to be kind. Days when old wounds surfaced unexpectedly, reminding you both that healing doesn't end, it just evolves. But you kept showing up. For each other. For yourselves. For the life you were building together. And with every passing year, that life grew stronger. You moved into a bigger place, one with space for both of your things, for guests, for future plans neither of you had dared to make before. You filled it with memories, photos on the walls, books stacked high on shelves, mismatched mugs from different cities you visited together. You planted a small garden outside, where herbs grew under the summer sun and flowers bloomed in colors that reminded you of the way he smiled. People asked how long you two had been together. At first, you counted in months. Then years. And eventually, you stopped counting altogether. Because love like this doesn't need numbers to prove its worth. One night, after dinner and a movie and a long walk through the neighborhood where the streetlights flickered against the dark sky, you sat on the couch wrapped in blankets, legs tangled together, his head resting on your chest. He sighed contentedly, fingers tracing idle patterns against your arm. "I still can't believe we made it here," he murmured. You kissed the top of his head. "Me either." He lifted his gaze to meet yours. "Do you ever think about that night? When I knocked on your door?" You nodded slowly. "All the time." He smiled, soft, nostalgic. "I didn't know then that I was knocking on my whole life." You laughed quietly, tightening your hold around him. "Neither did I. Because it had started so simply. A knock. A stranger. A moment of kindness that neither of you could have predicted would change everything." You remember how lonely you were back then. How heavy the silence in your apartment used to feel. How hard it was to imagine finding someone who truly understood you, not just the parts you showed the world, but the ones you kept hidden even from yourself. And now, here he was. Lying beside you. Breathing the same air. Sharing the same life. Sometimes, love begins with a single choice, to open the door. To let someone in. To risk everything for the chance at something real. And sometimes, that one choice changes everything. If you're listening right now and feeling alone, if you've been hurt before, if you've given pieces of yourself away only to watch them crumble, if you've convinced yourself that maybe love isn't for you, don't give up. Your person might be closer than you think. Maybe just one knock away. Maybe standing at your door right now. Maybe already inside, waiting for you to realize they were never just passing through. Thanks for watching. If this story touched you, hit the like button. Subscribe for more real-life stories that remind us all why love matters. Because it does. It always has. And it always will.